What's up, everyone? This is Jordan again from the Undergraduate Survival Guide podcast. Today we have a fellow HTT host, one of my inspirational friends from Bristol. It's just Seye. How have you been in the last? How's graduation treating you?
Thank you for the introduction, Jordan. Everything's been chill. It's been relatively chill, well, as can be. Just adjusting to life post graduation, as well as also trying to figure out like what life is like post graduation. It's just been a bit of a moment of like figuring things out on the job, both in terms of personal and career wise.
Yeah, I hear that, man. Like we were talking before the podcast started as well, and just it's crazy to hear how much you've done just at work, and obviously with your intensive course as well. We're just studying, but yeah, it's mad how much can change in a year, well, a little over a year now, considering like where we were a year ago.
Yeah, definitely. Like, no one expected this to happen, but, like all things, it's a case of it's about us adapting to the situation and just trying to find a way to, even though it is a bit bleak, once survive as well as also try to make the best out of the situation. Do you know what I mean?
Mm. Yeah, for sure. Like, how have you like managed to adapt in the like, I know we talked about it as well, but I guess in a bit more depth, how have you adapted to the work-life balance like in the last year or so?
The main thing has been reordering my priorities. That was the first thing that I really wanted to get on top of as soon as I started working. Even though I don't know if I'd recommend this, the first thing for me was to ensure that my work was always at a good standard. I made sure that I was doing the best I could do to pass my exams. I guess the main reason for that is because I hadn't had an experience being in a grad scheme. So a big thing for me was just starting off with a strong foot and making sure that I wasn't lagging behind. So it did lead to me spending maybe I'd say more time than I should have spent studying. But of course, this is what I'm saying in hindsight, and just really, really focusing on trying to be on top of my workload. Then afterwards, as I became more comfortable, I started looking at what other things can I start squeezing in, whether that is things involving like reading or writing, or in terms of getting my fitness up and going back into the gym. Just trying to, I'd say that the first half of my year was spent around like adjusting to my work-life balance, and then the second half was spent around adding layers to that work-life balance.
Mm. Yeah, I hear you, to be fair. That makes sense. Like, like I kind of touched on it in the introduction. Like, you inspire me in a lot of ways, and I think one thing that kind of set that in stone for me is I remember seeing you in first year. Like, there was one night out. I'm not going to go into too much depth, but I remember we had like a confrontation about an issue club, and I'm like, nah, this year, guys, is not serious. But then 6 months later, like coming to second year and obviously seeing how you were in third year as well, it's like, damn, this guy's really changed. Like, you really turned it around. You really like, you're kind of the guy I look to. You and Brian similarly when it comes to like, discipline, work life, balance and stuff, managing your time. And I'm like, it's remarkable how like, because even me myself, and I'm looking at how, especially Brian as well, to be fair, seeing how he was in first year compared to how he is now, it's like, damn, if people can really turn themselves around just like that, like there's hope for me. I hold a lot of faith in the system after seeing how like you and Brian work. And I kind of want to ask like what if there was anything that instigated that change, like what kind of forced you into, I guess, waking up and doing things differently?
Uh, I'd say for a long time, even before university, I've always been someone who does a lot of like introspection, always looking at myself and trying to reflect on my actions. And to say prior to university, a lot of my life is based around being the ideal person in terms of like how people see me. So being an ideal version of like how the people I looked up to saw me, rather than being my own version of my ideal person. So when I got to university, it was a case of a lot of freewheeling and just, am I just gonna figure it out and just move mad. And I'd say,
Yeah.
of course, with that lifestyle, you do end up in fairly precarious situations. And it got to the stage where I had to take a long, hard look at myself and be like, Seye, okay, this is the position you're currently in. Like, is that what you want to be in long term? And it wasn't even like a case of me being told. It was just a case of me having an honest discussion with myself. And yeah, I'd say that's where like the main bulk of the change came from. But it wasn't like it wasn't like an overnight thing. Like even in that second year, there was times where, of course, I would slip up, and second year, third year, even to this day, I still slip up. But the main thing is realizing that it is a journey, regardless of like how many people tell you, oh yeah, Shay, you changed so much, you've done all these things. It's a case of me still realizing like, hey, humble yourself, because you could easily end up making mistakes again. And again, you've made this much change. Where can we go from here? But of course, appreciating the change that I have made.
Yeah, I hear that still, because I think to some degree, like I guess it's all good and well to change like in the short term, but having like the capacity to actually realize, as you said, like being introspective, realizing your flaws or your issues and kind of fixing that and constantly growing is like such an admirable thing. Like understanding that we can always get better as human beings, and that there's always something that you can keep pushing and improving on is one thing, but acting on that as well and continuing to grow is like, I don't know, like it's a great thing, and I love seeing it in people.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I just gotta be thankful for the fact that of course, I was able to reach that stage, but I also had a friendship group who also would call me out, who would also suggest things, who would also support me in terms of learning new habits, dropping old habits, and just in terms of being patient with me. It's a case where there's a lot of people who see the changed person, but I don't think enough credit gets given to the people who are key in making that change.
That's very, very true. I guess, how have you, like, more specifically on that, what is it like? Because obviously I know you guys have that covert chat, which I'm not going to expose too much, but it's like, is it a case of where you just sit down with guys and like actually go over things, not like an intervention, but as a proper like talking through things, or you just like realize over time, like, let me fix up this and that, and like small tweaks over time? If that question kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I'd say I definitely wouldn't just put the bulk of my change on solely on that covert as well, though, because there was loads of people who changed, whether it's like people at church, or people at all these different friendship groups that, even though I may not talk to these people as regularly, it could legit be something that someone said in passing. And it's a case where that person saying that thing to me in passing, this may not be something like just mad, like, oh, Seye, you need to really change, da-da-da-da-da. It could just be something like, let's say, that person's done something that you didn't expect them to do, and they complimented you on that. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, Jordan, I really liked how you got involved in that initiative. Like, I didn't expect that from you. Someone saying something like that in passing. But it's just like a combination of these things that made me realize, okay, wow. And it wasn't even like it wasn't like it wasn't like a major intervention. It would just be a case where, like, when you're around your friends, you have like candid and frank conversations. And with friends, you will say, sometimes people will say ignorant stuff, but it's about when these ignorant things are said, pulling your friends up on it, rather than it being a case of being like, that's how my man is, or that's how this girl is, or da-da-da-da-da. It's just guys being guys. Like, there was definitely importance in terms of like both guys and my girls that I had as friends calling me out. A big person who was key in terms of me changing the person was Kamara. Like, my conversations I had with her, it wouldn't even be about stuff in terms of like stuff that I did in the past or stuff that I may have said in the past, just about stuff in that moment. But having those kind of conversations with people does lead to change.
Yeah, I hear that. That's something that even me myself, I'm always trying to reflect on a bit more. Like, not just in a social environment, but even professionally or academically, it's like taking on that feedback and trying to apply it to yourself. It's something that I've never really understood how to do. Because, for example, one day someone can say, oh, I'm happy that let's say for me personally, for example, the podcast, someone, oh yeah, that's really great. I like how you're doing, you're being inventive, industrious, doing different things. And then someone else would be like, oh, you know what? You got to stop doing all of that. Yeah. Focus on your degree. And so I've always found it difficult to find like, what's the right mix? What's right? But I guess fundamentally it comes down to, knowing yourself and then figuring out what works for you and how, as you said earlier as well, like making sure you're constantly pushing that, and refining yourself in a way that not only you think is great, but that other people can also agree is like, a better version of that.
Yeah. That's so key, like in a way, like just being able to discern people's intentions, and being aware of like what people, I feel like it's very, very key to know how you're perceived by other people, not in terms of like being self-conscious, but in terms of understanding why they're giving the advice they're giving. So, let's say you take on, like, let's say we use podcasts as an example. I'm sure you have some friends who do genuinely want the best for you, who do genuinely think you're a great person, but they may be like, I don't know about if people would want to listen to a podcast, but it's a case where those people may still be your friends, but it's just a case that they don't have the vision. So in a way, it is about having that good balance between yes, having confidence who you can talk to about difficult situations, but also being aware of the fact that not everybody's going to be the person you should go to in situations. Also, it's a general piece of advice. I don't feel like one person or like one group of people should be, actually, let me say one person should be the person you go to for all your advice. I feel like that's an unfair burden on one person. And I feel like who holds that much information in this world to be able to provide an answer to every dilemma?
Yeah, that's very true. I think that kind of transcends like, social as well, but it's also like because people never really have all the context. Like you're the only person that understands exactly what happened and when it happened in your own life. So you can only really ever get like one piece of the puzzle from him, that one piece from her, a couple pieces from there. And I guess this is about floating around and trying to create, finish this whole puzzle that, you would call your life, as opposed to, as you said, like onto one person always. And even on them, it's really unfair if you're always constantly like, X, what am I doing wrong here? Help me with this, help me with that. Cause it's hard enough to manage your own problems, let alone someone else's.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're all figuring this life thing out, especially when we're all like, teens, early 20s, mid 20s. It's like, bro, like, how much knowledge do I really have to be able to give you advice in these situations you're going through?
Yeah, facts. Would you say like, because obviously, we can both give examples of people that I guess push and inspire us to do better, but is there someone that, I guess indirectly that you aspire to be like? I don't know, maybe like someone at church or someone at work who just like, that's what I can't think of the words, like exactly what I want to be or what I want to be better at, than where I am now. And you kind of strive to achieve, what someone's done.
See, it's tough because I remember when I was growing up, my mum always told me the saying of like, be wary of people, of looking up to people in general, because of course these are people. So, of course, see that person, but always make sure that what you do is that you assess them critically, not in the sense of like hating, but in the terms of, I want to take the good stuff out of your behaviors, and then I'll leave the bad stuff so I can still keep my core values. Like, I remember when I was like a lot younger, I always used to have these things like there were different people that I would look up to. Then when I get to the stage, I was like, okay, now I'm in your position. I kind of understand that you're just like me. So I don't really have as many people that I'd say, yeah, I'm really, really trying to be like that person. But I do have people who, let's say, I can really appreciate their character and their work, and there are some elements of their behavior which I'll be like, okay, let me start considering how I can bring out that trait in myself, but not in the terms of like imitating, but more so seeing them show that makes me want to work on that in my own way. Do you get what?
Yeah. That makes sense. Because I guess I kind of asked that, kind of like meandering around to a different topic, where it's like I've noticed, and obviously you talked about in the past as well, how you don't really use socials anymore. You kind of like tuned off social media, and I kind of at the time I didn't get it because I fall into the camp where it's like, nah, Instagram is everything. You got to see what people are doing. People got to know where you are. Growing a business, blah blah blah. But as soon as I heard used, I've been deactivated it or deleted your account. I'm like, raw. Like, it is possible for someone to actually detach themselves, not from society. That's a crazy thing to say, but it's like to not be so, I guess, caught up in like what's going on socials in particular. Like, how come? I guess how come that was so easy for you? Or like, was it ever a point where it's like, nah, it's not really worth it. I'd rather just go back and and join the crowd.
Um, I'd say my reason for social media was mainly just about like cutting out all the noise. I felt like a lot of the stuff on social media was affecting me more than it should be, and this is even stuff that was particularly like controversial or polarized. It may just be like someone making an annoying tweet, and I started to think that maybe I'm making myself too available to this kind of stuff. And it's not even a case where it's that these are people that are tweeting this stuff that are bad people. Some of them are people I'm genuinely cool with. But it was a case of me just starting to think, I'm letting people's social media or online personality skew how I perceive them. And in that case, I'd rather just be ignorant. I'd rather just be ignorant to their social media personalities. So a key thing for me was just removing myself from that. And in a way, I felt like I was becoming too caught up in my own self-importance in a way. Thinking that, if I miss social media, then I don't know, like, what about if my friends want to send me memes and stuff like that? And it's like, bro, they will still use social media regardless. Like, I was just having such like stupid, not even stupid, I was just being so self-absorbed with it. So I was like, okay, let me just go away from it. So it wasn't even on the tip of like productivity or, when people say, how can you be on social media? You're missing out on the world. It wasn't a tip like that. It was just a case of me just wanting to step away because I was just being too affected by it, to be fair. And I'd say that was the key behind me maintaining my distance away from it. Like, I knew that as I stepped away from it and just started finding other things to do, I started feeling better. It was even like in terms of the way I communicate with my friends, I'm a lot more of an active communicator. Before on social media, before when I was on Instagram and all these other apps, it'd be a case where, hey, what do you mean I haven't seen you in like 3 months, but I saw your story like yesterday. I've seen you. But like now it's like, you have to like now it will be a case where I'll call my friends or like they'll come over and we'll have a long conversation or we'll chat on WhatsApp, as opposed to it just being a case of like, here's a meme, there's a meme, here's a meme, there's a meme. So yeah, right. It was just key in terms of me just stepping away from like the white noise. And in a way, it was like me doing that, I was able to find like different things that I could do to fill the time.
I hear that. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, to be fair. Like, I like your point on, I guess, communicating effectively. That's definitely a perspective I've never considered before, because I completely hear what you're saying. Like, even this whole lockdown that we're experiencing now, it's like, I literally haven't seen anyone in, 4, 5, 6 months, but I feel like I have, purely because of socials. It's like, I know X is on holiday here, Y is going for a jog there, but fundamentally I haven't actually seen anyone. And I hear what you mean, because I know for a fact if I were to see someone tomorrow, they'll be like, oh, how was your holiday? Which might only be the last 3 or 4 days, but you would never, talk about the fundamentals of what's actually going on beneath that. So yeah, I completely hear that, to be fair. I've never really considered that perspective. I guess where the nature of that question came from is like, me, myself, a lot of my friends, a lot of my older friends I see, they're not doing, not necessarily things I don't agree with, but maybe they're not taking uni seriously, not taking their job seriously, spending a lot of money they don't need to. And I tried to not cleanse it. Cleanse is not a very good word, but for lack of a better word, I tried to cleanse my social media, where I'm like, I'm going to unfollow people that, I don't want to see as much, or I'm going to try and get the algorithm to stop sending me, girls and football pages, and try and actually be the better person that I am. And I kind of build up a timeline of things that I aspire to be, like of inspirations. So that's kind of where my perspective on that came from. But no, I definitely hear what you're saying. It's interesting to see that, you communicate more effectively. Like, I've always seen you as someone that, you, Moses, and I think Ayo, are guys that I think you've always spoken really, really well. And I've always been like, how can I be more articulate? How can I put the word superfluous into a sentence without being judged? Like, but now I guess, like, how have you, because it's the way you talked about it, it sounds like it's been really, really effective. Like, it seems like you've come a long way since getting off social media. But I want to, I guess, deep dive into that and say, how have you measured that success, and how have you got to a point now where it's actually, you can objectively say that it's better off here than you were before?
Just in terms of the way I feel about myself, being on social media, I feel like, see if I'm still on LinkedIn, but being on social media, it does feel like there's just constant feeling of like a pressure to, what's the word I'm looking for, to fit in. I do feel like when it was a case where I wasn't spending a lot of my hours just observing people and seeing what they were doing, it was like I was focusing more like the person I am and what matters to me and these other things. Also, I feel like my timeline was very much repeating the similar type of views, similar type of discussions, similar type of topics. And being away from social media, I started looking at like consuming a wider range of content. So it was like, the time I would spend, let's say, reading like this discussion or these type of tweets. Now is the case where now I might pick up like this type of book, or I might watch this type of show, or watch all these other stuff. And also I feel like, like me being away from social media has also meant I enjoy shows a lot more. I can't even lie. I watched Insecure a lot later. I watched Insecure like, I said that 2 months ago, the latest season. And it was a case where I just took it at a time which was more convenient for me, rather than me having to like dodge all these spoilers and everything. But sorry, I think I went off on a tangent. In terms of me knowing that I'm in a better position, I'd say the main thing has just been the pursuit of my hobbies. I'd say less time on social media has made me feel a lot less pressure in terms of trying to do what I'm seeing, and now focusing on what really matters to me. So recently I took up I took up writing. And I don't know, I don't think I would have taken up writing if I didn't have that time to really reflect and think about and really reflect on my thoughts and start trying to work on like processing a lot of emotions. Whereas when I have that extra time to just really be with myself, I'm starting to be able to work on like putting those thoughts in the paper. And it starts off with me like talking about my thoughts, to writing essays about my thoughts, to start to form a story about an experience I had. And I'll genuinely say that like me having this time has really made me feel like, like I actually like enjoy writing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Before it was like I was doing acting, acting was really good. But I realized that acting was just like a form of expression for me. The things that really mattered to me was the whole process of like storytelling. And when you think about storytelling, the first thing that comes to mind is like writing stories, And even in terms of like just having more time to read, like reading has been so key in terms of me getting out of lockdown. It's not even me reading like all these like super like these classics or books that make you sound really smart. I'm just talking about like reading like any like random short story. But the main thing is that the stories I'm reading are from a different experience to myself. Especially in lockdown, it's been like I've had to find something to act as a getaway. That's helped so much. This in terms of one, I'm processing my emotions, and two, just getting out of my head.
Yeah. That last one, that's a good point as well, because I think you do a lot of mindless scrolling, and not even just on social media. Like you do a lot of mindless stuff just in life in general, like watching a TV show for the sake of it, playing video games for the sake of it. And that's not to say that any of those things are bad, but if you're not doing it in, I can't think of the word, but if you're not doing it responsibly, I guess, like people always say, I always look at successful people and they say like everyone's got the same 24 hours, it's like what you do with it. And fundamentally it's because like, I spend a lot of time playing FIFA. Like I'm never going to be able to pursue more things that I'm passionate about if I'm always messing about mindlessly doing tasks just for the sake of doing it and not being I guess disciplined with how I manage my time. So I guess it makes a lot of sense. And I think writing, as you said, like in terms of creativity, it's a very good thing to do, just to stay creative, to stay I guess involved in what you're actually actively passionate about. But then I'll not necessarily challenge you, but I want to ask like how has that changed in lockdown, where you've had like way more, well, I imagine you've had more time to fill, more hours to fill. Like how have you adapted your process there?
How have I adapted my process? Interesting one. I'd say the main thing is that the main thing that's really increased during lockdown has been my reading. That's a good thing. Because I'm part of this book club. I'm part of this book club which is aimed at like getting more young boys into reading. My brother's keeper, and as one of the session leads for that, a lot of the time it involves me doing a lot of reading just to design the session plans. So, if it was a case where I was working, there's no chance. Well, it would have been very difficult to go through the amount of books I had to go through to design the lesson plans for this coming year. But because I had a lot more time on my hands, I was going through books in like a week or even less time, and it was a case where on one side it was like, yes, I was doing work for the organization, but on the other side it was a case where I was enjoying reading books. And in a way it was really encouraging me to be an engaging reader, because it's one thing to read and there's one thing to read and enjoy the story, which of course is great in itself, but it's a whole another thing to be able to read, process a story, then turn that into a lesson plan to teach to young people. You probably may not even be reading some of the books that you're going to be suggesting to them in their everyday experiences outside of an English literature class.
That's very true, yeah. Because like, I guess once you have a purpose or reason to do something, you start doing things that you have no reason to do before. That kind of makes sense. So you're never going to stumble across this book without having to, having to prepare it for the lesson plan. That's pretty cool. That makes a lot of sense, to be fair. How did you find, you said what, My Brother's Keeper?
Yeah.
Is it something you just stumbled across and got heavily involved in, or?
Yeah. Yeah, like, to be fair, perks of social media, that's how I found the Instagram page. Like, a mutual friend follows one of the founders, so I must have found them. I found their page. Then this is during the time I would say I was looking to add more layers to my work-life balance. So I messaged them messaged them around New Year's Eve time. Said, hey, super interested. They saw my page, back then used to post quite a few books, and they were like, yeah, get involved. And then it was a case where legit just started easing myself in, observing how they structure the sessions. And it was a case where like gradually I got more involved and started looking to suggest books, start designing lesson plans, attending meetings, and it was just pretty much a snowball effect. And I've been taking it in my stride, to be honest. It's just been a case of like working on being useful and looking to match my interests, my hobbies with my passions. Has been a key thing in terms of my work in the organization.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. Is that something that you take that takes priority for you, like how much free time you're going to get, not just for yourself, but also to continue following your passions, giving back to the community, things like that? Is that something that you take a lot of priority, you take very seriously?
Yeah. Like I'm in a privileged position in terms of like a lot of my hobbies do lie around my passions as well. So, even when it's like I'm writing, like my writing tends to be based around my childhood experiences and experiences now. And if there's like a young black person from a working class background, these stories may inspire them. And it's not even just in terms of like, oh, look where he's going to. That's in terms of like representation and seeing somebody and seeing themselves in a book. You know what I mean? in a book, in a play, in a short film or whatever, really.
Mm. Yeah. To be fair, like, I don't know. I think it's crazy, like, because I never really got into books growing up, but I think in the last couple of years, more so through Brian, to be fair, just giving me every single book in the world to read. But you start to appreciate, like, there really is so much potential out there, and it's like, do you feel like Moses kind of touched on it briefly in the last podcast episode? Like, to everyone else who's listening to this, if you haven't seen that yet, check that out. But it's like, me similarly, I never really understood my blackness until uni. I kind of looked at other people. I'm like, damn, like I've really got a lot to learn. There's really a lot of things that I'm overlooking in terms of my own heritage, my own culture. And what book was I reading the other day? I think it was 50 Cent's book. Flip, I forgot what it's called. He literally just put it out, and I was reading it like 2 years ago.
It's in the Power. What's it called?
I think Hustle Harder, Hustle Smarter. Is it? Yeah. And I was like, raw, like, like we actually are like sick as human beings and as black people as well. It's like, I really want to get more invested in that, not just in terms of books, but the culture in general. And yeah, I just think it's nuts. Like, I'm looking at your Instagram page now, my brother's keeper book club, and I'm like, I love seeing stuff like this. I love seeing organizations like this that kind of allow us to dream bigger, I guess, and to realize that we really can become anything fundamentally, like literally can do anything.
Yeah, it's so key. It's so key. I think that's also when it comes down to the onus being on us as well, in terms of going back to our schools, to our schools, to talking to our younger cousins, because, it took somebody to make me realize even part of my potential to get me to here. So imagine how much of an impact we can have as well. And I feel like a lot of the time we could be like, oh, I want to wait till like when you start your grad scheme, I'm going to wait till I get like senior in my role. When you're in university, I want to wait till I get a grad job and so on and so forth. Whereas like, we don't realize like how much us going into these places is actually going to impact these young people. Like this, they don't really care about like, of course, like it is impressive to be able to say, oh yeah, I'm an MD or wherever, but just you being in the position you're in right now is still going to be inspiring. I'm sure there's a lot of young people who would say, yeah, I want to go to like a university like Bristol, or even I just want to go to university. Where it's like, until you meet somebody who's gone to university, you don't really know you're capable of that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you know what? Monday morning, I'm going to drop my brother to school, man. It inspired me. Because it's true. Like, the thing is, and I'm the same as well. I'm always like, when I make it big, when I get this certain level of status, that's when I'm going to give back. Because at that point, I have proven something. But like, fundamentally, you prove something every day by like every step of the way, even getting to Bristol, even getting, A star, whatever people get A levels, like every step is significant. And there are so many things, like when I was in year 9, I never would have thought I'd get the GCSEs that I got. When I was doing my GCSEs, I never would have thought I got the A levels I would have got. And there's so much, every step of the way that people can look up to. And I guess it's kind of bridging that gap. Because even me, myself now, I'm looking at it, like I look up to guys like, Will Smith or something that's mega successful. But there's kind of not a skill gap, but there's like a gap between, I don't really know who's in the middle, who's making it here and there, who's kind of doing this and that. You kind of just look at yourself at the bottom and you look at man at the top. And I think it's definitely important, now that you say it, to kind of fill that gap, because otherwise it's like, how do I transition from here to there? You don't just wake up a millionaire, or you don't just wake up successful, and you need to, I see what you're saying. Like, it's important to kind of bridge that gap. And it's nice to see that you found ways yourself to do it as well.
Yeah. Like, definitely. And I feel like there's, especially with like mentors, we underestimate the importance of a personal touch in terms of like having that genuine connection with your mentee. Like, my mentor, guy called Jelani, who went to the same college, he went to the same secondary school college as me, was in my brother's year. But I got in contact with him again when I applied to KPMG. And since then, we've been keeping in contact regularly. And it's been a case where he works in a different side of professional services to me. But he's been so impactful in terms of my personal growth over this year. And this isn't even just about like careers wise. This is career wise, creative wise, just life in general. But, you know, it's a case where I could be caught up in this idea like, oh, I really want to work on writing. So, you know, rather than me going to Jelani, I might start shooting off messages to Inwai Elums or Kaide Awumi because they're where I want to be. But it's also a case of like, of course these guys have great advice to give me, but they don't know me as a person yet. Do you know what I mean? I feel like when we're looking for mentors, we often get caught up in the idea that, oh, we need to automatically go to somebody who's in the exact position that I want to be. But there's still wisdom we can get from somebody who is in a position in and around that, or even maybe just in a completely different area, but it's still very successful because there's so many transferable soft skills.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear that, to be fair. What would you say, like, because obviously I know that you're into several things, but as far as like, I guess most importantly, books and like movies and stuff, what would be your top, you know, if I'm putting you in the spot, but what's like a book that you're recommending right now, or like a top 3 films off the top of your head?
In terms of book, I'd say the book that's impacted me the most not even this year, I'd say period, is The Brief and Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz. I'd say he has like 3 books. The 3 I loved them, but the most impactful one for me was The Brief and Wondrous Life. I'd say that was the first book I've read where I've truly seen the younger me to some capacity. I felt like, of course, and this is even just about like purely. This is even like based on me seeing like another black person in the book. Because of course, you know, I've read like Things Fall Apart in terms of Nigerian writers and all these other books. But in terms of like somebody who had a similar experience growing up to what I had, and it was pretty. I think that's what really made me want to start reading that book, because Junot Diaz brought a book that was unapologetically Dominican. He was writing about the Latin American Dominican experience, moving to America, and then trying to assimilate into that kind of culture, as well as also dealing with like the difference between the culture back home and the culture in the States, and all these other things were intermeshed into the story. And I loved it because I really related to the main character, because he was this like awkward, uncool Dominican boy who really struggled to fit in and was really, really detached. He felt detached from his Dominican heritage. And I often had this experiences similar to that when I was growing up, in terms of being Nigerian, Yoruba, not really feeling that same attachment, and just in terms of feeling out of place. So that was a really important story for me in terms of both like the writing style, because it wasn't like he was writing a glossary of Latin American or Spanish terms. He just wrote Spanish terms. It was like, if you want to understand it, you either understand in the context that's being used or you Google it. But I'm not going to write this book for your gaze. This is my story. So he was unapologetic in that regard, as well as it also be a case where this story, I can relate to it because it does remind me of my childhood.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
Yeah. That's the point that came into mind. In terms of films, I've been watching a lot of foreign films this year. IO, he put me onto the app called Mubi. So I've been really, really getting a lot of good content through there. In terms of films I really enjoyed, there's one called The Lunchbox. It's set in India, and it's about a city worker who's essentially, I think the system is wives would cook for their husbands their lunches. The husbands would go off to work. They won't take the lunchbox with them. The wife will hand it to a courier who would then take it to the husband's work. And now these lunchboxes got mixed up. So now there's notes being written back and forth between the city worker and the wife of the husband whose food should have gone to.
Mad.
And for me, it wasn't even just the story, but yes, there was that. Of course, there was this like budding romance but it's also just in terms of being placed and immersed in a completely different culture. Having been to India, so it was just really, really like refreshing to be in a completely different environment. Like for me, I rate films on how immersive they are. And one thing I really appreciate from foreign films is like the attention to detail in terms of cinematography. I feel like when I'm watching English films, I'm just focusing on the dialogue. What's this person saying? What's that person saying? Whereas when watching foreign films, I spend a lot more time focusing on, like, let's say, what's going on in the scene? Like, why is there this pause? Why have they switched the angles and stuff like that? And I think when I'm watching The Lunchbox, I was so immersed in that to say this is one of the best films I've watched this year.
Mad. That's crazy. It sounds like a fun watch, yeah. That's on Mubi, you said, as well.
Yes, it's on Mubi. The only thing is with Mubi, they have like let's say like 50 films that they put on, and it's like a collection that they update like every week. So the film's long gone from Mubi, but you should be able to get on Amazon or something. But yeah, that's one of the films I really enjoy.
Yeah, I love that, man. Do you think, like, because obviously you talked about briefly at the end there how you observe certain parts of the film, like the angles and lighting and things like that. Is that something that you take through into like everyday life as well? Like, do you see yourself as more observant, for example, in the workplace, where it's like you learn, what you need to know to do your job, but it's also like other sides of the business, or like what's that guy doing over there, and building that into your own role as well? Or is that just something that you exclusively observe in movies?
Now that you mention it, I do tend to be very, very, very attentive, especially like to like small subtle things that people do when communicating. So yeah, that is something that I have a habit of doing, but I wouldn't say that was something that I'm consciously working on as I was watching more foreign films. I'd say that was more of a trait that I always had. But in terms of like something that's really leaked into my work life, I'd say is just the way I communicate. Doing acting, as well as reading a lot, it's really made me find it fairly easy to communicate and speak in like standard English. It's just in terms of like being able to like write emails, I do it fairly competently because it's a case where like I spend a lot of time reading people's work. So that's definitely something that's leaked into my work life. But I'm sure there's probably more. It's just a case I'm not cognizant of it.
Yeah, I guess that's natural. But I suppose, as with anything, as you reflect on it and you realize, maybe specific tropes, you kind of understand more. I hear what you mean. To be fair, like, even me myself, I feel like more so in work than anywhere else. Like, I remember I was working at Domino's, I was just a delivery boy, and most people you kind of do your job, but I find myself being a bit more attentive. Like, so how many more pieces are shipped at this hour than that hour? Or how can I work a bit more efficiently when I'm not delivering them? Like, can I like fold boxes or do this and do that? And it's definitely something that I think, at least me myself, talking from my experience, like being attentive and observing how the greater world works around you is important. Because at least for me, there are so many things that I wouldn't have been able to do. Like, for example, this podcast, I never would have started it in the first place if I didn't, obviously, one, have the vision for it in the first place. But two, I'm looking around and saying, oh, look at it, Joe Rogan deal is a bit interesting. Let me see what's going on there. Or Amazon are acquiring this and that. Like, it's definitely like risk. I think it's fun, at least. It's fun to see what else is going on and to try and tie that into how you navigate life on your own. Because you never know what sort of opportunities are out there once you just, I guess, open your eyes to
it. Yeah, that's so true. In terms of like, I feel like in life, especially in the early ages of our life, we don't see the bigger picture. Especially when it comes to like creative projects, a lot of the time it could be a case where, let's say we're talking about like a film, people be like, oh, I want to be the next John Boyega, I want to be the next Daniel Kaluuya, I want to be the next Michael Ward. But there's so many roles that are involved in like producing these things that are just as are very important, and probably pay well and are probably just as fulfilling for that person, but a lot of the time we get caught in the glitz and glamour. We think, okay, if I'm not going to get this role, then it's pretty much just a dead option. But, I definitely feel like if we had like a more holistic view of the world and opportunities, would be able to do so much more in terms of it just being a case of so many people going for these limited roles. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Even in terms of in terms of my career, because of my career and me having a good understanding of accounting, it does make me consider, okay, what's the business side to a lot of these films? What's the production side to these films? Especially when you look at these independent films, it's often interesting to see, okay, who funded that project and how many hats was the producer wearing? How much creative control did the funders have? And just all these interesting things. Because a lot of the stuff that we claim is creative is so commercial. Like, I'm pretty sure, have you heard of the Man Booker Prize?
Yeah.
Yeah, like that really big, literary book prize. I'm pretty sure one of these big private equity firms, funded it. And it's a case of course, because they funded, they'll get the advertising. And all these classics, all these amazing books, we don't even think about the publishing business behind those books. You know what I mean? The corporate side of these things, which is a very viable avenue for a lot of people, but we often feel like we need to separate our business lives or our career side from our creative side, when there's definitely scope for the two to be intermeshed.
Yeah, that's very true, to be fair. Yeah, no, I hear that. I remember the first time I realized when I first got into books, I wanted to buy stuff. I was looking around and literally every book I saw was a New York Times bestseller. I'm like, how is it possible for 50 books to be the bestseller this week at the same time? And yeah, I see what you mean. A lot of these, I don't want to go into too much depth, but it's crazy how some of these commercial industries, how heavily they are involved sometimes with the creative space. But I guess more specifically to you, how come you decided to do, economics and then go on to work in the financial services sector, despite, your obvious passion and interest in the creative arts?
Capitalism. No, but being true, a case of it was just being financially independent. My circumstances growing up, it was often the onus on me being self-sufficient from an early age. And, it was weird. When I was a lot younger, I wanted to be a doctor. Then it was a case, I was 5 years in university. That's a bit of a long time. So it was just a case of me thinking, okay, what jobs pay well? And then from there, what careers lead to these jobs? And economics was a great starting point, because not only is it preparing me very well for these roles, it's also making me more aware of the world around me. I definitely feel like just in terms of having a good and solid grasp of economics is so key. And I knew that if I wanted to be the person that I saw myself being long term, I needed to have an understanding about economics, because it's one thing to have money. I'm not even in terms of being consumed by it, but it's a whole other thing to be able to understand what money can do and how it's being used in the world. So yeah, I'll say that was a big drive behind me wanting to go into these industries, because it was one, financial independence, wanting to have a stable income, but two, also having that knowledge to be able to work towards being stable. So, let's say 5-10 years time, or whenever really I publish a book, because I have that accounting, economics knowledge, hopefully I won't get shagged by some of these contracts, because hey, no, what do you mean in perpetuity? I know what perpetuity means, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think that's very poignant right now as well. I see a lot of rappers and artists complaining I've been signed to these ridiculous deals because I didn't know what XYZ meant. And I think another side of that as well is if you're Like I'm sure you're familiar with the whole starving artist idea, and it's like if you're fundamentally, not in a great place, you're equally more likely, I guess, to sign up to these bad deals, to make these bad financial choices. Like I always say, one of the biggest problems affecting like a lot of people I know, including myself, is like time management for one, and financial education. Like if you just know better, if you're just better with money, that opens up so many doors. Like when you're talking about writing a book in 5 to 10 years, like at least in the time that it's like I can afford to dedicate 6 months to this project without having to eat rice every day for a week because you're in a good position. And then balancing that, of course, with you individually, if you're like being a disciplined person as well, it's like this will actually get done, and there's actually a real prospect of just being done without having a big hindrance on my general livelihood. So yeah, I mean, I see that, to be fair.
Yeah, and in a way, it's also about the integrity of the art. If you're in a position where you're self-sufficient, you're not writing from a point of I need to bang just so I can live. You're writing from a point of I'm writing just to express myself. And yes, granted, I do want this work to be seen by a wide range of people, but I'm in a position where if this doesn't get taken on by, I don't know, a HarperCollins or a Penguin or wherever, I can still do my own thing. And you made a great point in terms of financial literacy. That was a huge reason behind me choosing economics, because it's a case where I was like the stuff I've seen, it would be very, very remiss of me to not know the importance of addressing my lack of financial literacy from an early age. So what's the best way for me to learn this? Because let me be real, what's the chance of me actually going out of my way to learn this at a later stage? It's by doing economics as a degree and then working in accounting.
Yeah. Did you, like, obviously, I remember you did that performance thing. I think it was end of second year, maybe early third year. But were you heavily involved in like acting and writing society and stuff in uni?
No. I'd say outside of like, let's say how many stuff that I do? Three things. I'm gonna say 3 things. And they were all with like different societies. Not really. I think for me, I just didn't like the vibe. I didn't like the vibe of some of the societies at the time. I didn't like the vibe of some of the societies, and I just didn't have the time, to be fair. I just didn't have the time as well. Like it was very, very, I only started acting in the second half of second year. So what was that, like a good 8 months, seeing what I can do work wise. Then it got to the stage I was like, okay, I'm confident in my acting skills. Let me look elsewhere. I didn't really feel like the vibe of some of the societies was really for me. And to be fair, I think that's an important thing about acting, Like a lot of people think that, you just boom, switch it on, and regardless of who you're around, you can become your own version of like Denzel Washington. No, like you need to flow off people, I can't just perform like an intimate scene with somebody that I don't really feel suits me. Do you know what I mean? It is ways. And in a way, I think that's the privilege I have, because I have like my corporate side as well, because it means that I can put myself in the best conditions for me to be as an actor or as a writer. Do you know what I mean? It's not a case where like, I have to take this job with this person I don't like, because if I don't, I'm not going to get paid. I'm not going to be able to eat. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's so big, to be fair. Like even beyond like the topic of a conversation, I think being able to say no to things is something that is like so powerful, man. Like I honestly wish I had, like we talked about before the podcast as well, like if we didn't have to go uni based on circumstances, we both said we would have gone on a gap year. And it's like being able to say like, you know what, I'll study next year, or like, you know what, I'll take a different job. Like that's such a powerful thing, man.
Yeah. I definitely feel like, especially as we start off our careers, a lot of the time it is a case of, being seen as unproven. And then it's like, okay, I'm unproven, so, these people can just exploit me anyhow. But also it's a case of like us looking to find some form of strength or some form of autonomy how we can, like with my grad scheme. I remember, even though I wasn't one of those people, I was like, bro, it's a grad scheme, they're a good firm, so of course we're going to get shaped. People are like, I'm not really happy in terms of this thing or that thing. But for me, it was a case of, okay, these conditions aren't ideal, but at least tailor it to me to some capacity, so that in that way, for me, it was choosing an intensive scheme to fit around how my mindset was at the time. Of course, we may be, when we're not in ideal situations, say no if we can, but even if we have to say yes to a bad deal or a deal that may not be as convenient for us because we don't have that power at the moment, it's a case about trying to find ways to make ourselves comfortable despite that.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. How would you say, like, beyond the work example you just gave, how would you say you've gone about, making yourself comfortable with suboptimal conditions? I guess more so in uni.
Oh, uni.
Well, in general, to be fair. But,
okay. I've got a good example in uni, to be fair. I remember I had this tutor in third year, and I had a bad experience with him in first year. And I remember there was a tutorial that I prepared in a great amount of detail. I'm coming into that tutorial feeling confident. I'm feeling like, yeah, I'm going to smash it. I'm prepared. So, I come down, I sit down, I get my laptop out with my like 4 or 5 pages of notes for each of the questions. And no word of a lie, every answer I gave, he told me no, or he said it like detail. And you know what really got to me is there was a guy sitting right next to me. He didn't have a single word he didn't have a single sheet of paper in front of him, nothing. He was reading off my screen, and the lecturer was having a conversation with him. And the old me, I would have been like, nah, it's cool. I got a chip off my shoulder. I'm gonna ride it out. I'm gonna prove him wrong. I was like, bro, I ain't got time for this. I just moved to one of my friends' tutorials, and I remember I tried to go through the normal route in terms of emailing whoever they are, the admin staff, and saying, oh, I'm not really liking it. Can I move? They said no. I just went to my other friend's tutorial because they don't even have a register. So that was an example of like how like I was in a situation which wasn't convenient, and I just took myself out of it. I ended up doing a lot better with that tutor. And I think one thing as well, we often feel like we need to ride out bad situations. Sometimes it's okay to just walk away. If it's a case where you don't feel like you like it. I wish I did that more in third year. And not even third year, I wish I did that more in university. Like, if you don't feel like you like your course, if you don't feel like you like your university, if you don't feel like you like your, don't be afraid to just find another one. Do you know what I mean? I remember there was a colleague that was on the intensive scheme. They were struggling really, really hard with the accounting content. And I remember they got moved to an empowered scheme, which is when you work and study. And I saw them in the offices, and they said, oh, hey guys, hey. And they were like, hey, what you been up to? And I was like, working, studying. And they were like, yeah, I won't lie, I'm leaving in about 5 months. I was like, whoa, you're leaving? Then they followed up by saying, yeah, I got a graduate job in the consulting scheme. And it's like, that's how easy it is, where some people, they'll be like, I'm in this tough position in this audit grad scheme. I'm not really liking it, so I'm just going to ride out. What is that? If you don't enjoy it, and deep in your heart that you really don't enjoy it, you can be better utilized elsewhere, then go elsewhere. I feel like we're often too scared of the unknown to make these decisions.
I think from my own experience, like with uni, having failed first year, I think one of the reasons why I persisted in the first place initially was pride as well. Because it's like, yeah, I know I can drop out if I want, but, I want to prove to myself and to everyone else that I can do it. And, while in my circumstance, that was fine. Like, I found other reasons to continue. I definitely see a lot of my friends where you kind of persist with a bad situation because you feel like, I won't equals I can't, when it's like, a lot of the times you can do it, but there's no shame in saying like, I don't want to do it. Like, I don't know, man. I think it's a bigger thing. It's a way bigger issue that I don't know enough, to explore in depth. But I definitely think like letting go of pride in that circumstance as well, just knowing that it's okay to to take an L here, because it doesn't mean you're not capable. It just means that it's not good for you. Like, that's such a big thing as well.
Yeah, it's so key. I remember I had an experience where I walked away when I got into a part-time acting school, and it was a really, really big acting school. Like, a lot of the actors that I looked up to, they went there. I was like, wow, this is so big. I'm so happy. So I'm super excited. And then I had this acting coach, and he was just not a nice guy. He just was a nice guy, plain and simple. He was just not a nice guy. No effort to pronounce my name correctly, just pitting me against other actors. And then he got to the stage where he did a couple things that were really outlandish, and me in that time, I didn't call him out in it, and I was really disappointed in myself, because it was a case of me thinking, Seye, you're not even in the industry yet, and you're already giving blighs for actions which you know are wrong. So I just took myself away from it. And I remember I was having a conversation with like the head of acting, and he was talking about like, oh, Seye, this is a great opportunity. Don't leave. We'll just move you to another class. I was like, no, I'm not compromising my morals to be here. Like, some people may say it's a great opportunity, but I don't care. I don't feel comfortable here. And I'm not going to let my pride or this feeling that, I'm going to ride through, and, you're going to make sure that I can prove to him that I'm a good actor. It's just that I don't care. If you can't see it, then I'll just leave. And that's like, so many people need to be, that's one thing I'd really stress to people in terms of being comfortable, confident in yourself enough to be able to walk away from a situation, especially when you're not being treated how you should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Like, I remember I saw an interview from Chadwick Boseman, rest in peace to him. He was saying, like, he has so many opportunities. He could have, like, been successful way earlier, but they kept saying, like, oh, do an accent or act a certain way, or they'll treat him like shit. And he's like, you know what? I'm not gonna compromise who I am and my values and my morals just for this gig, because you have to believe that deep down, like, and you touched on it as well just now as well, which I think is a great point. It's like, you have to believe in yourself and say that I am good enough to do the things that I want to do. It's like, if you can't recognize that, if you can't perceive my value, that doesn't mean that there is no value. It's more of an issue on, I guess, your vision in me as opposed to like in me as an individual. And I hear that, to be fair. Like, a lot of people can learn from that, I think, and even me myself, whereas, I'm always reluctant to say no sometimes, because you don't want to lose the opportunity, that, quote unquote opportunity. But it's like, fundamentally, it's not, just because I haven't done it your way doesn't mean that I can't be done. It just means that your way, or our eyes don't align. And yeah, there's a big thing there, I think. It's just, I guess, recognizing your own value.
Definitely, man. Definitely. There's so many different experiences I can draw upon where it's like, it goes outside the creative industry in terms of like the workplace. There's been times where like I'm working, and I remember there was this internship that I had, and it was bad. It was bad. I think for me, it was a case where I just finished university, and I was very mentally and emotionally drained.
Mm.
And the standards of my work dropped. And for me, it was a case where I knew I didn't want to convert that internship, but I was staying there mainly because I wanted to say that I completed it, as well as it also being a case where it's like the money, it paid decent, but finishing that internship, I was left with strong feelings of self, because there was constantly this like idea that, Seye, the quality of your work isn't there, Seye, you're not attentive enough, Seye, you need to do more of this, less of that, When you're constantly being met with criticism, it's going to take its toll on you. Regardless of how much you may try to dip into that mold, you're going to be affected by people's opinions of you to some capacity. And I think what was key for me in terms of like bouncing back from it was just not forgetting about the experience, but not letting it define me. Do you know what I mean? Like, understanding that this is a clean slate when I go into my grad scheme. And yes, I made these mistakes in the past, but what I'll do is I'll make sure that I've learned from them by starting off in a way that was completely different to how I started off back there. Taking on board some of the criticism, but also understanding that some of it was loaded with biases, misunderstanding of behaviors, and just plain stupidity. Yeah, you know.
Yeah. No, it's true. That's what it is sometimes, to be fair. Just being dumb.
Yeah.
Nuts. I guess, tying it back into like uni, I guess, a bit as well, I guess, and, I suppose your workplace too. What do you think, like, has changed the most for you in terms of like since you started uni compared to where you are now?
My self-confidence, mainly because I'm just comfortable being me. In the past, I often felt a need to tailor my personality to those around me, making sure that people may feel comfortable around me, making sure that people may feel like unaffected, trying to ensure that people weren't affected by the mood that I was in at that time. Whereas now it's a case where it's like, this is who I am and it is what it is. And there was a lot of times where I was going out of my way to hide my emotions and making sure that I didn't come across like I was experiencing things. But nowadays, I'm more considerate about how I feel in different situations now. It's a case where if somebody is affected me, if I care about that person, if that person's really annoyed me, I'll make them aware of it. In the past, I'll be like, no, I don't want to come across this way. I don't want to come across that way. Nowadays, I'm confident enough in myself to be able to, this is how I feel in this environment. This is how I feel in this current situation. And granted, your perception of me may change, but you still need to be aware of what you've done to me, of how what you've said has impacted me, both in a positive and a negative way. Just being confident in who I am as a person has been a key part of me growing, of my change since the person who came into university and the person who left.
Yeah, I hear that. And that's a big thing, to be fair. Like, I guess another layer of that you could say is like acceptance as well. Accepting, like, you know what, this is me, this is what you get. And things are just so much freer after that. Like, I had a phase in a second year where it's like, I was often trying to fit in. Like, I didn't want to act a certain way because it might hinder my friendships. But then I got to a point where it's like, a lot of the guys I hang out with like me, but I don't really like them. And the reason is because that they like the actor, the actor person I'm playing, the caricature of myself that I'm portraying, as opposed to me as an individual. And once you accept who you are and you kind of double down on that, like, me and my own experience, things have got so much better. And it sounds like you're saying the same thing with you as well.
Yeah, that's definitely, I could definitely echo that sentiment, and even though it's a case where the group of people you may be around will be smaller, but those friendships, those relationships become a lot more wholesome. They become a lot more organic, and in a way, I'd like to believe that they last a lot longer because that person is experiencing the real you. Then knowing this is the rough and this is the smooth when it comes to being a friend of Jordan or being a friend of Seye. Do you know what I mean? Rather than it being constantly about, I don't want to say this because this would be that reaction, or I don't want to do that because that would be that reaction. No, bro, this is me. This is me.
Facts, yeah. That's the thing. And plus you just feel so much better about it as well. It's like, for me, like, again, in my own experience, you kind of feel like I'm going out wearing a mask, like I've got to act a certain way. As soon as you kind of take that off and it's like, you know what, let me just do me. It's like, you just feel so much freer, things are so much better. And even as you say there, like, that you made better friends. I think people at work or at uni treat you right because they know that you're not going to take, you're not going to take that, their behavior anymore. And yeah, like, I agree with you as well. It's like, even though you might have less people around you or you might and that piss some people off. Fundamentally, as long as you're doing, as long as you're not hurting anyone, and you're happy with who you are, like, you can't really go wrong there.
Yeah, that's the truth to it, to be fair. Especially because I honestly think sometimes I feel like authenticity can almost be rattling to some people in a sense of like, oh wow, why is he acting like that? Why is he not acting like how we're acting? And it's like, bro, this is just how that person feels in that moment of time, and it's okay. And if it's a case where is that right, if you're close up to that person, you pull them up. If you don't pull them up, then you don't care enough, and that's okay. That's genuinely okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Do you think, like, I guess a mini question, and then the bigger question I would ask is, like, were there times where you were, I guess, tried and tested in uni in that front, where it's like people expect you to be different? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, be it because of like your financial situation or because of your race or things like that. Like, were you ever tested in uni? And then the bigger question I would kind of want to ask is, like, how did you find uni as a whole in terms of like where it took you in life compared to where you are now and where you were when you started?
When you say people expected me to be different, so they came in like with stereotypes, is that the question, or is it that they expected me to conform and I didn't?
Yeah, I mean, I was trying to ask it in a vague way, but I think to be more specific, I was asking, like, have you ever felt like you had to do things a certain way in uni in order to get through?
Okay. I'd say a big example was my first year flat. That was a real rattler for me because, of course, it was a case where I went to like a school in East London, Walthamstow, where like it was a majority black school, and when I got to my flat in uni, it was like I was the only black person. They're all white. And to be fair, there were moments where it's like, the first thing was that they genuinely struggled to understand me. Like the amount of times I'd have to repeat myself. So it was like me having to step out of my London accent and trying to articulate myself in a way that they can understand, which was annoying. It's like I'm legit speaking English. And there were moments where it got a bit weird because I genuinely didn't vibe with them. Like it was just a case where like, it wasn't personal. It's just a case where I didn't want to be around them. And they started to make it a bit strange and they started to make it race related. And that was something that I was very uncomfortable, especially because I found out about this through a mutual friend between me and them, as opposed to them saying this directly. And then I remember one of them brought it up in passing, and it was just a case where it's like, I think for me, that's when I was like, that really confirmed that I made the right judgment in terms of not being friends with them. The fact that that was the first difference they thought it was between me and them, which made me not want to be friends with them. So I'll say that was a situation where there was pressure to conform to, because it could easily been the case, oh no, I'm not racist. Sure, when are you guys going for drinks or prees? Next time I'll be there. I could have easily been like that. But it's like, no, I'm still going to keep that same stance that I had. In terms of the second question, what was it again? Sorry.
How did uni go? Yeah, like how do you find it, I guess?
Uni was a mixed bag. It was a mixed bag. I can't even lie. Would I do it again? No. But am I happy that I did it? Yes. I feel like one of the benefits of university is that it made me more aware of the world around me. Both in terms of, life outside of London, yada, 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 as well as also in terms of how I am perceived and, the different reasons for, like, let's say these inequalities back at home. not back at home, like my personal home, but just back in London, and just me being able to understand that, let's say some of the friends that I had, which may have ended up in these situations, it's a case of like, I could have a bit more of an understanding now because different people I was around, and it was like, oh wow, we don't all just go to university because we're smart. Just, like,
yeah.
stupid stuff. Not even stupid, but I was just like, I was very, very naive, idealistic back then. And going to university made me realize that, just by being exposed to different things, which I may not be as exposed to as soon if I didn't step outside of London. Well, probably is the same thing in terms of the UCLs, the Kings, but I don't know. And from another point, also in terms of the word I'm looking for. In terms of like how many multi-layered people I met, there were so many people that were doing so many amazing things, and it made me realize that you're not defined by like your degree or your university or your background or wherever. Like there were so many people who were just doing so many amazing projects involved in so many interesting hobbies, and they weren't just doing it as hobbies; they were doing it hobbies which they excelled in, which made me realize that just because I'm studying economics doesn't mean I have to be a finance guy. Do you know what I mean? So that was definitely like the positives I took out of university. So it's still a mixed bag. I don't think it'll ever not be a mixed bag in terms of my reflections on it. But I don't feel bad about my experience. I don't feel overly bad about my experience.
Yeah. I mean, I guess uni, in many ways, it's just 4 years or 3 years of trial and error, right? Just, throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. But then,
yeah. And that's the importance of it, in terms of like just continually exposing yourself to new things. Like, I think that's the one thing that really made my university experience what it was. Like, I continually got involved in like different interests, different societies, different hobbies. Like, I didn't just settle for the things I was good at when I came into there.
Exactly, yeah. Did you ever feel like, not pressure per se, but did you ever like look at people around you, see like, he's starting this, she's starting that, they're doing this, and feel like you should be doing something as well?
Not not really. I guess the only time I think I remember this happening, is T-Fed just got shot down right quick. I remember this was back in like first year when they were doing ACS elections. And I remember I ran for president, and I think I must have dropped and passed into Tim. Hey yo, bro, can't lie. What do you think? You think I should run for vice president? He was like, yeah, I don't think that's used though. And that's the importance of it as well. In terms of I knew that Tim would give me an honest opinion in that situation, so I didn't. But yeah, I'd say that was a time where like might feel a little bit of pressure to step into something that wasn't for me. But
man, I should have spoken to Tim back then.
Overall, like I never really felt pressure to keep busy, because I think for me it was always about doing stuff that I didn't see other people in my immediate circle doing. Like I didn't really know people were doing like acting, like or even some of like the projects I was getting involved in. A lot of it was me just like stepping into uncharted territory, because I just want to do something new. I don't want to be completely out of my comfort zone.
Yeah. I get that, to be fair. But is that ever, because like going back to what you said at the beginning of the podcast, like you talk to people about, just in terms of how you can grow and learn in yourself, like lonely is not the right word, but would you ever feel like you're kind of doing it on your own and you haven't really got anyone close to you that can support you in that sense? Or is it, irrespective of what your knowledge pool is, as long as people are around, it's fine?
That's an interesting one. There was actually one time, to be fair. I remember when I was doing American football, and I was actually good at American football, but there wasn't really that many people that I could gel with in the club. And aside from Tyrone was in there. I remember Tyrone was like, yeah, he's quitting. I was like, yeah, I'll quit. The vibes ain't gonna be there. The vibes ain't gonna be there if I don't get involved, if he's not involved in it as well. But yeah, like I think that's a good question you ask, because of course, try new things. But also remember there's a social element to a lot of these things, especially in university. Of course, look to grow, but also look to meet new people. I think thankfully, with me acting in university, I had people who were like writing, directing, so I could always talk to Ayo about stuff. Or, a lot of my friends, they watch like theatre, or they'll watch plays, or, of course, theatre plays, they'll watch movies. So we can always talk about acting stuff. So I always had somebody to be able to bounce off in that area, despite not many of my friends being actors.
Yeah. No, I hear what you mean. I think it's nuts, like, because you talked about your flat, and I had a similar experience with my flat, where it's like, damn, I'm the only color person here, and like, I'm the only working class person here, and I very quickly felt like I didn't belong there, and it very often feels like, I very quickly got to a point where I don't even want to do this anymore, because as much as uni is like something that I feel like I need to do, if I'm not enjoying it, it's going to be hard to to fake that for 4 years. But then I guess uni is different in a sense, because you know that you're there for a reason. Like I was always like, what, when I finish it, it's going to be worth it. And I just always wonder, like, when it comes to not necessarily creative projects, but maybe like society, the things that don't necessarily generate, tangible rewards and stuff, how people manage to power through that in a different circumstance.
That's a tough one. I guess, I'm definitely oversimplifying it, but your confidence in your art, if it's a case, I know that I can be, if I know that this work that I've got in my hands is Oscar good, or it's Pulitzer Prize good, even though that's the Man Booker Prize, I should think. Then, it's just about trusting in the process, as well as also like looking after yourself, I definitely, that's one thing I really believe in is that I don't think I feel like people are too willing to give something their all, and it's like in life we're like we've got so many layers to ourselves that how can one thing be enough to sustain us, like people would easily think, oh yeah, because I enjoy writing, I should just dedicate all my energy to becoming a writer. That's all I should be. I can't even lie. Sometimes I get bored of writing, so I'll pick up a book. Well, I've got my 9-to-5 job, or all these other things that I do to keep myself busy. Like, of course, like if you feel passionate about something, you want to pursue it. But also remember that, like, we're human beings, not robots. We're gonna need more than our passions to be able to just keep us going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I'm just agreeing, like, because I think to be fair, me myself, I often try and put myself in a box, and you very quickly exceed that box because you know that there's way more things to find you, and it's hard to travel along one line. So no, like I completely agree. Like, you really do need to find other things that make you happy, because otherwise you just get bored very quickly.
Word. Like I remember, like a while ago with this year, someone asked me, so Seye, do you know what reason you are for being on this earth? I was like, I'm like 21, 22. How am I going to know what reason I am for being on this earth? Like, praying, praying that I live to 100. Like, how am I going to know at 22 what I want someone to say when I pass at like 100 years old? Like, come on, I think in life is a case where we want our, well, this is me anyway. Like, I want my life to be a combination of different things. I don't want my life to be based on me, making partner, or me being on the Oscar podium, or me being a published, established writer. I don't want those three things to be, that's who Seye Ibare-Akinsan is. Like, I want it to be way more than that, like father, husband, all these other things that are just as important to me. You know, I definitely feel like we're too quick to subscribe ourselves to like these few things are who I am as a person. I was like, that's boring. That's boring.
Honestly, yeah. Nah, to be fair, like like I'm smiling now. Like it brings me a lot of optimism when you realize that. Like, I don't know. I feel like the people before us, the previous generation, you kind of grew up they grew up, I should say, where it's like you finish uni, you get a career, get a job, and you do that until you die. Whereas now, our eyes have been opened, and I think social media plays a part in that as well. Where it's like there actually is so much we can do, and obviously, I would never recommend doing more than one thing at once. Like having focus and drive is important, but you literally can nowadays do so many things. And I don't know, I like that. It excites me because I know that, alongside, for example, this podcast, I can do YouTube. Alongside that, I can do the degree. Alongside that, I can invest. Alongside that, I can do there are so many things, and they're all in many ways accessible. Like obviously there are, levels to the access and certain things, but for us, for me and you, Jordan and Seye in the UK in 2020, like we can literally do 90% of things. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'd never laugh at anyone else for not wanting to do several things, but I'm like, you can literally do anything in the modern era, and I can't understand how people don't want to. Like, it's just, I don't know. I'm gassed. I'm excited. I think the future's going to be a very exciting one, but it's just knowing that there's so much out there, and if you want to do something, you can do it.
Yeah. I totally agree with you, man. There's a lot more opportunities at our disposal than our parents' generations, and that's definitely. I feel like when I think about these things, it fills me with optimism, but also a sense of worry, because it's like, wow, there's so many different options, but I don't really know where I'm gonna fit, and if I just overcommit to this one, it's like that could be an issue, and this might be in my best route, and all these other things. But yeah, like it is great to hear, and I feel like it's such an important thing as well. Is also trying to have based on like our core beings, like our core values. Always going back to this, because there's a case where some people may feel like I'm good at let's say athletics, but I'm also good at art, and I'm also good at all these other finance and all these things. But it's a case where in our life, how many that's how many different people's lives. So of course you want to be able to live your life to as full as possible, but you also don't want it to be a case where you dedicate 50% to here, 30% to here, 20% to here, and you're just going marginally in all these things. When if you really reflected on what matters most to you, and as well as also what is most realistic, then it's a case where you can start really scaling things up and start thinking, these are the passions, these are the hobbies, and these are just the things that I like to do just to get by and just to keep things ticking. I remember when I was in second year, I was doing gym vids, and I stopped them, but I didn't stop going to the gym. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that. Nah, it's nuts, man. I don't know. I'm trying to cool myself down because I think it's exciting, but I hear what you mean. You don't want to go off on the wrong path and then realize later that, you know what, maybe I could do things differently. Maybe I could do things better. But then I guess, there's always, not necessarily a silver lining, but things are always, in a vacuum. They can go either way. It's what kind of defines, your success there is actually doing it and then seeing where it takes you. So yeah, I don't know. I'm optimistic. I guess anything you're doing now that could go either way, but you think is going to go that you're optimistic about, or equally that you're pessimistic about.
Anything that I'm doing. I'd say, I think for me at the moment, it would be my writing. That's something that I'm still a bit unsure about, because just in terms of me working on projects and being unsure about which one I want to focus more of my energy on, as well as also it getting to the stage where now it's okay, writing starting to become more of a thing that I'm including in my routine rather than something something that was fun and just something that was just me venting now, and now it's about me thinking about how can I actually start putting work that can be seen and with like people that can actually get it available to the masses. So that's been something that I've been I'm optimistic about, but I'm also in a bit of uncertainty, especially because it's like, yes, I like writing, but also enjoy reading. At the time that I spent reading is time that I'm taking away from writing. Do you know what I mean? So just these balance of things. So yes, reading makes you a better writer, but of course you need to write to know you're a better writer and all this stuff that's going on through my mind. But these are positive problems,
Yeah, honestly, like just some degree it's a luxury to have a problem like that. So,
yeah, definitely. Is there any that you would say?
Yeah,
is there
I guess.
that you're
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I'm doing a lot, and without going on for too long, I think I'm at a point in life now where it's like I've gone through a lot, I've made a lot of mistakes, I've done a lot of good things, but I've never been so confident in like who I am and what I'm capable of. It's more about, do I actually have the time and the resources to commit to like even for example the podcast, because it's poignant at the moment we're on it. It's like I'm confident that I can get better, I can get good guests on, have good conversations, but it's like how far can I push, like, I don't know, marketing or advertising, or can I get better at editing things? And I don't know, it's difficult to say because I feel like a lot of things are still floating in space. But I'm generally optimistic because I feel like there's nothing that, and not even just me as an individual, but people in the 21st century as well, there's not much that we can't do if we put our mind to it, or at least, within the rules of nature. But yeah, I just want to see how things go. I think this year's not a good indicator for that because of the coronavirus. Like, everyone's locked down, you can't really do much. But as long as, well, not talk for everyone, but for me as an individual, I know I put seeds in place for a post-COVID world that things should be fine, things should be great, and I'm genuinely optimistic and excited for the future.
That's great to hear, man. Honestly, it's definitely filling me with optimism. Thinking all that good stuff.
That's the way, man. And plus, not to mention, like, I mean, obviously, it's not about leeching off of your friends or anything, but I see guys like you, Brian, Moses, Ayo, Ash, everyone from Bristol, having graduated, doing their own things now. Everyone's working, everyone's in their own respective circumstances at limited success. Like, there's no reason to believe that things just won't keep improving. Obviously, anything can happen, but I don't know. Take it one day at a time and celebrate while you can.
Honestly, that's the crazy thing. Your network grows, and before you know, this person's doing that amazing thing that their contact, they can introduce you to other people as a organic networking. Just friendships.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
I think, I guess one closing question I want to ask and pose to you is not if you can go back, but if you could speak to your younger self, or, someone who's just starting out, whether it be at like uni or, just graduated, starting their career, like what's something that you would tell, the next person? I guess that's two questions. Like, one, for your past self, and then two, someone who's just starting.
I think to my younger self, I'll tell them to enjoy the present. There was a lot of time. I think there was a lot of things I was doing when I was younger, which was continually based around this idea that this is done for the benefit of me tomorrow, me next week, me in the future. And, of course, I've managed to get to an amazing position because of that mindset. But when I do look back, I do wish that I didn't see enjoying myself as a bad thing. Like, genuinely, I was a bit of a prude back then, and I wish that I would just let myself. I wouldn't feel like it was such a bad thing for me to be happy in certain moments, and I wouldn't be so serious back then. But yeah, that would be my main advice to my younger self. In terms of someone starting university, is it starting university?
Either or, but yeah, someone who's starting out, be it uni or work, or
Oh,
someone
okay,
in the early stages.
okay. Open-minded. Be open-minded. That's the most important thing. I feel like one thing that I really noticed in university, or just in general, is that we tend to pigeonhole ourselves. We tend to put limits on our careers. And I think, yes, of course, it's good to be driven and focused, but also it's like, how much do you really know about this to be able to say this is what you want to base your life around? I do feel like we need to be more willing to step out of our planned career paths or our planned interest, or our current interest, and just be free sometimes. Be happy, thrive in like unknown circumstances, and just trying new things. If that's like let's say it's like a job that you wouldn't usually apply for, just apply for it. Even though it may not be in your desired career path, you never know, you might grow to love it. Or it could just be something you do while time passes by and you find the thing that best suits you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think it's a quote from, I think it might be Steve Jobs, who's like, going forward, it's hard to make sense of things, but you can only connect the dots going backwards. Like, that's not verbatim, I'm paraphrasing it, but it's like, even if you're doing things, as you said, like apply for a job, irrespective of you think you'll get it or not, you won't know, if that was the right move until, 3 or 4 years later, you're looking back and it's like, that's why I started this, that's why I did that. And then eventually that will kind of mold into the person you're going to be in the future. And yeah, I definitely hear that. Like, being open-minded is it's a massive thing. It is a massive thing. Because the second you stop believing, the second you stop, I guess, enjoying uni, or like, to be fair, anything in life, like, once you get disillusioned, that's when it gets difficult. That's when it gets hard. That's when you want to do something else. But for as long as you're enjoying, or at least trying to, it's hard for things to go wrong.
Yeah. That's the most important thing, and as well, like being intentional with it. That's the thing that I missed out. I feel like it's very, very easy to caught up in this idea that, because I'm here, that's a good thing. Let me just be easy. But, also it's like, do these things for the betterment of yourself, like make sure that when you're doing these things, there is a purpose behind it. Not something like, oh yeah, this is like a long-term life plan, or this is going to help me become like the next whatever. Just make sure that you're doing it for a reason, not just for the sake, because that's how you end up wasting time.
Yeah. I must have done about 3 or 4 episodes now where someone specifically used the word like being purposeful and intentful. Like, it's that I gotta write that down, man. Because fundamentally, yeah, once you're being in control of your time, knowing exactly what you're doing and why you're doing it, it's such a big thing.
Honestly, it's the biggest, man. It's the biggest. Like, honestly, like once people like master, I feel like the 2 key life skills for me, for my growth, were being intentional and figuring out what matters to me. Like once I started working towards those 2 things, a lot of things started to get put in motion. But these are only 2 things, but these are such pivotal things, so they're not going to be mastered in a day or 2. And these are things that I'm far from mastering. So, it is what it is.
Yeah. For sure, man. All right. That's essentially the questions I've got for you, man.
Oh, wow. Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me such interesting questions to answer.
Anytime, man. It was great having you on. I'm appreciative of all the wisdom you gave today.
Thank you.